Before starting the talk, I would like to say a few things about the fire alarm yesterday, which happened to have been a false alarm. It was probably caused by the amount of steam reaching the smoke alarm. Several people who were in the waiting line were running upstairs or walking. And there's a door right there. And people in the sitting room were walking out of the sitting room door. There are two doors here. Now, it's an interesting thing for us to wonder why we do this. Is it that our main exit is the reception area and this is what is in the mind? This is what we aim for? And then it's also said in the orientation, gather on the front lawn. And if one sits here, maybe to go this way seems the most direct way, through the front door and down the stairs. But some people were seen turning right. So this door here, that door here are workable doors in case of a fire alarm to get out of and then walk around the house to the front lawn. Also in front of the waiting room door, right in the middle, was the fan. It would be good to watch not to put any object in the front of a fire exit. We've been doing it in the meeting room to form a complete circle. One person is sitting right in front of the door. Maybe we should forego the perfect circle, which is nice for discussing, so that that door remains free for exiting. This is day 4 of the August 1993 7-day retreat in Springwater. There's been quite a bit of discussion and questions about change. Change and choice. Do I have the choice to change? Can there be change? Will I change? Have I changed? It's a difficult topic because it needs moving from our habitual ways of thinking and talking to actually looking what is going on, which is always difficult or needs some extra energy. Because there is the habitualness of our language, the habitualness of our thinking, and our habit to want to remain with what runs smoothly, rather than stop the energy, as it were, getting off of the habitual smooth track into not knowing and therefore looking. This has not been prepared at all. I don't know where to start. Maybe the easiest is with a question or two this morning, 2 meetings, private meetings. One about, can I change? Is it possible to change? And what that particular person was thinking about was become more limber, more flexible physically. He said, I'm getting pretty stiff these days. I said, that's a simple one to start out with. One notices, as I think all of us notice, the older we get, maybe the more, but it's not just connected to age. Stiffness sets in quite early. Oh, it's an utter joy to see children run. They rarely walk if they're not constantly reminded, walk, don't run. They run with grace and freedom and so much energy, so much beauty. And as one gets older, wakes up in the morning, that's what we shared this morning. I mean, not waking up together. That one is stiff, achy, not flexible. The older you get, the more it gets that way. Getting out of a car, driving even a short distance, it's as though one could hardly get the leg out or the body out of that door. So already from the very outset, can we not take our momentary condition for something lasting, permanent, unchangeable, not think or talk too much about it, not get hooked on it, because the way we think about ourselves affects the body. If we think I'm too achy, too stiff to hike, we won't hike, and then we'll remain achy and stiff. Things do change in walking, even climbing up a hill. It may be cumbersome in the beginning and suddenly it goes easier. Something happens in the body that moves, and moves without too much thinking about it. How bad it is, how difficult it is, how painful it is. But just moving does something to the body. So I mentioned to the person this morning, that every morning before getting up I do exercises, 10-15 minutes depending on how much time is. And that has happened for years, for many years. It's one of the daily routines before getting up to do exercises on the mattress, which turn out to be most helpful, because by the time this body gets up, it's not as it is if it hadn't done the exercises. It's more nimble, more limber, less achy. Now, do I make a choice to do these exercises? I can put it this way: I've chosen to do this, or I choose that every morning. But it's also quite clear through looking, feeling, listening, sensing, that it helps. And it's an intelligent thing to do. Take care of this body, including walking daily. I'm quite religious, if you will, about walking at least a half an hour every day or more, no matter how I feel. I don't think it's a choice. It's something that is helpful, that is indicated. The body needs it to remain movable and in condition. But the interesting thing is, every morning there is stiffness and some achiness getting out of a car, particularly if it's a long ride. I don't like long rides in cars anymore. They're hard on the back, on the joints. So that in a way hasn't changed, and yet in not taking it too seriously, and for the true state now that one is 66 years old or so, but moving and exercising, twisting, turning, stretching, it changes. Even though there is something about the basic condition which is different from when I was 6 or 10 years old. The other person who came in this morning reported of finding during the sitting the want to become more concentrated, have a more concentrated practice, and trying and struggling with that, wanting to become something other than one is at the moment, finding very distracted maybe, not with the breathing, whatever the practice may be, and imagining a state of higher concentration, maybe remembering one from the past where one was more concentrated, and this remembrance serving as the goal, bringing about the struggle to be more concentrated, forcing oneself, fighting distractions, suppressing them, controlling them. And then, for some reason, hearing himself say to himself, "Why don't you let go?" And with that, the struggle was over, and there was a present-mindedness, which was open, and things were clearly perceived. So, was there choice? You see, that to me, whenever I hear somebody say, "I choose to do this," this already complicates matters. It doesn't just look at what's happening. There is the awareness of the struggle, of the energy involved, maybe getting depleted, drained from struggling. And then a thought, "Why don't you let go?" But that thought could not happen, or would probably not have happened, if there hadn't been awareness of what was going on. The struggle, the strain, the involvement with a goal, and so forth. When one begins to look more carefully, one notices the division, me and my goal. That's what thought brings about. Thinking that here I am, and there's my goal, and I have the choice to reach my goal if I only expend enough effort. All of this is thought in operation, creating our world of division, and meanness and otherness, and goalness, and the struggle to get there, and to fight what gets in the way. So, a moment of awareness of all of that. And the question, why not let go of it? And the awareness remaining, not disappearing. Because what followed, the absence of struggle, the openness, and the beauty of just quietness. A person reported hearing a person going through the room, and it sounded like a bird. In other words, the listening to birds and movements of a person walking across the floor was no different listening. All of that comes out of awareness, out of being here, seeing what's going on. And maybe seeing through the futility of wanting and aspiring and ambitiously striving and fighting, conflicting. When awareness dawns and sheds light on all of this and isn't immediately overrun by new thoughts, I shouldn't be this way, I shouldn't be wanting, I shouldn't be striving. Someone says this and I've read it and maybe it's not good for me. That's just more thought. Then there isn't this surprising, astonishing, simple openness which reveals itself in awareness. It doesn't have to be looked for. It's there when the thought of trying to be different or try to get someplace else is seen through and abates. Now, if by listening to this, looking yourselves, you say, wait a minute, it doesn't work like that for me. Something is seen, but the same thing continues. Then why does it continue? And by why, I don't mean asking for an explanation, but watching it. Watching that which continues, kindly, carefully. Usually, if we can't get what we want, we turn away. We say, it's no use. Doesn't work anyways. I'm no good. I'm a failure. All of these thoughts taking over and affecting the body. Every thought affects the body in one way or another. With heaviness or lightness, with pleasure or pain. And then further thought arises, I don't like this pain, how can I get rid of it? Conflicting with a body which is just doing what it is asked to do, responding to thoughts in a conditioned way. And then being at odds with this conditioning. Not wanting it, wanting to be rid of it. And a compounding of the confusion. And then maybe a new moment of attention which throws light on this ball of confusion, which means the thoughts which are still there in the memory. I shouldn't or I should. Can I be different? I want to be someplace else. That's confusion. All of these different thoughts at odds with each other's goal, with their goals. And can that be listened to? The confusion of different thoughts going in different directions. I want to be different, but I shouldn't want. I don't like how I am, but I shouldn't judge. I don't want to judge. And so it goes on, and the body accompanying this like a cacophony of responses. That's confusion. Can that be listened to? Watched, attended to, felt wholly, without wanting to change it? Just like watching a muddy puddle without stirring in it any further. And that the sediments will settle out and the water clarify, become clear and reflect the sky and clouds. Why is it so difficult, so contrary to all of our upbringing and mores? And whatever conditions us to just watch what's going on Be there, attend. Don't hang on too much to the words that are used. They're always clumsy, considering the subtlety of just being there, listening, looking as one observation, as one awareness. Why is that so difficult? One person said in a meeting, "I'm afraid I'll be overwhelmed if I don't do something." This is our conditioning. "I'm afraid it'll get worse if I don't do something," because this is what is not just in our conditioning here, it's everywhere, it's in the air. Do something about it. And it may be indicated in many cases. A child has fallen in the water. There's something to be done to jump in and pull her out or him out if he can't swim. Maybe that's part of the reason that in some cases it's so effective to do something that it becomes a general conditioned response to do something about everything, including where it's not indicated. Like sitting quietly or walking quietly, observing what's going on, the thoughts, the emotions, the pains, the pleasures. Spaciously, meaning no doing, no doer. The doer is thought. I ought to do something. I should keep it. I should get rid of it. This I is thought. Just as it is thought to say, don't judge. Don't be judgmental. This back and forth. All thought against thought, creating confusion, muddying the puddle. So, can there be, for moments at a time, however long they may last, a quiet, listening, looking, being there, without the doer, without the chooser, because that's also thought. I should stay this way. I want to choose to stay this way. I'm choosing to stay this way. It doesn't work because at this moment it's already not an undivided openness. There is the thought of wanting to keep it, or fearing something else to come upon the scene. Which, when this thought is seen, the thought, I want to keep it, or the thought, I'm afraid something else will happen. When these thoughts are perceived, and they can be perceived, thoughts are internally perceivable. I don't know what the mechanism is, but it is possible. If they're perceived, they don't need to do any divisive work. They can come and go like clouds. At times shading the sun and then revealing it again when they've passed by. So, this next time, or this moment of waking up, of coming to, can one see the urge to do something, to keep something, and not go with it? Seeing is the not going with it, because seeing happens to be intelligent. If something is not seen, then come the thoughts, and the thoughts are always conditioned. I could do this, and I could also do that. What pleases me more? It takes time and effort to think of alternatives, to make decisions, to decide what decision to follow, which is indicated in certain situations. But here, a moment of waking up, nothing needs to be done. Just see what reveals itself as memory, as presence, whatever. Let it be, let it come, let it go. Who knows what will happen? And not to despair over the difficulty. That's what one person said. I began to really get discouraged when that concentration did not happen and there was so much distraction, getting discouraged with the whole thing and then letting go of the whole thing, of effort. And there it is. Bird singing, breathing, heart beating, light, moisture, sensations in the body from sitting, from moving, maybe some pain. It's all there, as it is, choicelessly. Now, does thought come up and say, well, what of it? It's not much. I thought it would be better than this. Maybe thought wasn't completely quiet all along, sort of looking how it likes it. And when thought is sort of lurking in the background, evaluating, comparing with what one has read about enlightenment experiences or whatever, then it isn't all free and open and simple and clear. It is somewhat distorted and divided. There is the comparer at work, which is thought. Or do we think that there is some entity inside us that chooses, compares, decides, that wants, that fears? We talk that way, don't we? This is how our language expresses itself. I was so afraid. I decided to do this or that. And not wanting to garner or not having the extra energy to look at what's really happening, we allow this way of speaking to confirm and solidify our beliefs in there being some controller, some wanter, doer, and chooser inside the I. But what is that? Do we want to get at it? Find out directly by listening inwardly? Alone or together? As I mentioned yesterday, it's sometimes easier when people get together. It's like a pooled energy to look at choice, for instance. What is it when I feel I'm choosing? Not say it's so, not say from the beginning, well, there's no choice, I've read that. Or I remember this from the past. No, it has to be real now. Let's not go for what we remember from the past, but look at it now. And all of us know, all of us know that there are moments where in conventional put in conventional language, it seems we could either go this way or we could choose to go another way. Like this with all of our addictions that we are trying to trace, investigate, maybe change. And addictions are not just alcohol or nicotine or drugs. Addictions are all the thoughts and activities that we engage in which cause pleasurable or comforting or soothing or numbing sensations in the body. That's all included in addiction. Whatever we think and do to make this body feel pleasurable, stimulated, high, numb, oblivious, whatever. And being addicted and knowing that we're addicted, maybe from glimpses or just knowing it through thinking about it. There is a desire to be free from addiction. Because one may also have observed all the detrimental effects of getting jittery, nervous, agonized when one can't get the substance or the activity, or the thoughts don't run that way. They run wild in another direction, which are all but pleasurable, frightening, anger-producing, anxiety, panicky. So we don't want that. At that moment, maybe the decision is made, I'm going to get rid of my addiction. It's easier said than done. At the moment of reaching for the glass, reaching for the cigarette, for the chocolate, Swiss chocolate. Going to the movies, whatever all the habits are. Is one watching? Or is some thought saying, never mind, you'll watch tomorrow? I don't want to simplify it, make it sound simplistic. But can there be a subtler and subtler watching? Are we even interested in it? Or do we say, well, it's no use, it doesn't work. Anyways, I've tried it for years, it doesn't work. Or is one interested enough, maybe in the course of a retreat, because there is more energy and less draining of energy in all the daily activities that we're usually engaged in. To have that interest and support it by watching what's going on. Not deciding yet what to get rid of, what to keep, what to choose, but to watch. Can we do that? Are we interested? The moment a thought has come up, either the pleasurable thought about myself, usually it's about myself, what I'll be, what I'll do, what I did, or the reaching for a cigarette or whatever it is that is craved. Can one keep looking? See the thoughts? What do they do when they're seen? When they're really looked at like a laser beam. Laser meaning the energy garnered, gathered into one looking and listening. Does the thought about myself, what I'll be or was, can that maintain itself? Does it maintain itself? Or does it wither, melt? It may have arisen before one looked and a pleasurable feeling resulted, but it doesn't have to continue if it's looked at and seen through for the narrowness of it, the prison-like tunnel that all such thinking and behaving activity represents. It is an enclosed, tight space with little or no light that can be seen as it was or as it is about to happen. A contraction about to happen can be seen, and a contraction that was can also be seen. And then it's not the same anymore. Please find out for yourself. But is the energy there to do it? Is the interest there to pursue this? We talked about hurt and feeling rejected. Will there be this laser beam of attention on that hurt, on the feeling of rejection? What is it made up of? Not know it. Discover it now as it is unfolding. The thoughts, the storyline about myself, about the others, and the reinforcement through the storyline of all the physical symptoms of hurt and rejection. Will we do it alone or together? Or say it's no use? I've done it before and it came back. It's often said by people. I've seen it before, but it comes back, so what's the use? I don't know what the use is, but when something is back, meaning it's here, it's not really back, it's here now, then it can be looked at, regardless of how many thousands of times one looked at it before. Here it is now. And already seeing through and letting go of all the thoughts that comment about how many more times and how often already, when those thoughts are not needed, are seen as interference, as already more energy to look now. For the first time, because this moment of hurt, anger, or whatever is new, is not yesterday's anger. It's not even anger. It's rather, what is it? This is a question that came up in a group, if I remember it correctly. Can one be free of anger or change one's personality so one isn't so angry anymore? But we don't even know our personality. We don't even know what it is we want to change. We have never looked at it. We have only ideas and reactions to it and memories of it. And what other people tell us about us and have told us. So isn't it premature to want to change something that we haven't even completely seen directly? So there's total intimacy and understanding with what we have called anger. By watching it and watching how thought sustains its storyline, history, the way I put it, the way the scenario is replayed, the comments that are thrown in by thought about why do you keep taking this, and the nerve of him to do this to you time and time again. Stuff like that keeps the anger sustained. And does the storyline have to keep running? Are we even aware of it, that it does run, and that it is a storyline, and that it is keeping this body in agitation and turmoil, and the potential violence? Who knows whether our personality will change or not, or can change. But what is it? This moment of being frightened or angry or desirous, can that be seen, looked at, sensed, been with, without judgment? With great openness and interest to understand oneself. Maybe that is the change. the openness of looking and listening, the quietness of not doing something about it, but the energy gathering in just being with what is, and not just zeroing in on this moment of anger, but also hearing the cicadas and birds, and smelling the flowers, and the sound of a machine. To the question that keeps coming up, can we change? Do we change? Have you changed? Right now, just raising this question, it needs the kicking in of comparison, memory, to give some kind of an answer. One has to remember, well, how was I? To sort of compare how I am now with how I was. And who knows whether the memory is correct. But with the aid of this comparative mode, which needs memory and evaluation, one may say, yes, some things that have changed. Well, what has changed? Speaking personally right now, if 20 years ago anybody had asked me to give a talk sitting in front of 40 people, I would have vanished from this earth in fright and panic. What has changed? Because I'm not panic-struck now in a retreat to have to give a talk. I may not even think about it until very close to sitting here on this chair. That has changed, not thinking so much about things, which then get the personality going. The anger or the fright or the wanting. More presence is usually less thinking, and less thinking is less upheaval, agitation, conflict, and so forth. Less hurt. Do I get angry? Do I get hurt? Somebody says something or does something. I do. Not always, not as much as I used to. But one thing can be said, it's gone so quickly. It's not carried around. Somehow or other, something has changed in this brain to not hold on to stuff. Certain stuff, other stuff. We talked about it this morning. Someone mentioning waking up in the night and a barrage of stuff, having a responsible job, or a barrage of stuff coming to mind that should be done, and thinking about it. I know that too. Waking up and all of a sudden this needs to be done and this just happened. And I don't know what it is about the night that it's particularly dramatic. Dramatizing stuff. Thoughts running like a Niagara. But we agreed if one sits up, then it goes very quickly. We were wondering whether that in itself is also a conditioning to just sit, and has the brain learned that in sitting there is no use raising all kinds of thoughts? I don't think so. Because it does happen, doesn't it, most of the time? I don't know what it is. So, does the personality change, or is the change that there is more attention to what's going on, and that attention has its own magic action, which is not a matter of will or choice or intention. It is rather more of the nature of intelligence, of seeing what is narrow, divisive, harmful, hurtful, and what is open and non-divisive, and kindly, compassionate. I don't mean ideas about this, but the actuality of it. And if that attention or awareness, call it what you will, is operating, then personality is not such a overriding factor. And when it overrides, it can come into view and doesn't have to take over. It can abate again. And as just was mentioned, new stuff needn't be carried around. That is sort of happening on its own. A flare-up and a rinse-out. And not carrying it around, so that one forgets, and therefore we can meet each other. Not through what I remember you said or did to me, but how are you right now? This other thing is gone, the memory hasn't carried it. And it doesn't if it doesn't go over and over and over, and it doesn't go over and over and over if there's enough to look and listen to right now. That's the beauty and healingness of being here. Because this question is often asked. Well, so I hear the birds and an insect bumping against the window, but so what? It's what's not going on that's important. Fretting and worrying and resenting and bittering. Which can happen any time that the attention wanes. So where are we in all this? It's probably not a very good talk on choice. I just couldn't tackle choice by itself. But we can bring it up in meetings. Yes, if you're really very convinced that you're choosing, then trace down what that chooser is. Catch him or her. And see if it is anything but thought. We will end here for today.